So I'm a urban planner, and I remember when I became an urban planner, I thought it was the perfect career for an introvert, and it turns out you have to speak in public a lot, so it's been a challenge. So I want to start. I was actually, it never occurred to me that I could take time to thank the people that are important in my life, but Michael kind of showed the way, and so I just want to acknowledge my kids, Joaquin and Penelope, because they have we're 3,000 miles apart right now, and as a single mom, that's really difficult, but they've been incredibly supportive of this time. So I'm Maria Cabildo, and I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrants. My father was a master tailor and had a great school education, and my mother sold prepared food in the plaza of her small town, and today you would call her a street vendor. And she has no formal education and learned to read in her 50s, and never learned to write anything except her name. And despite my mom's lack of formal education, she was an incredibly gifted household administrator, and is the reason that my parents purchased a modest single-story craftsman bungalow in East LA. Left on his own, my father would have been happy to keep renting in the crowded apartment buildings that he lived in since coming to the US in the 1950s. Now, my father's work as a master tailor required him to kneel and measure the bodies of Los Angeles's most affluent residents to tailor their suits and the occasional top coat. And he refused to teach me to sew because he had this vision for my future that involved me earning my living with my brain and not my hands. So, sorry. So why share these details of my life? Because they matter. Because my parents, my neighborhood, and my educational experience in low-performing public schools, and later as a first-generation college graduate, have everything to do with why I became an urban planner and why I committed the majority of my career to the east side of Los Angeles. My personal story has fueled my professional story. Boyle Heights and East LA are on the other side of the river from downtown Los Angeles. And our proximity to downtown hasn't meant that economic opportunity is within our reach. It's meant that we can marvel at the growing skyline and occasionally venture through it. And as a child, I was constantly reminded that opportunity was outside of my community, that to be successful, I needed to leave. In 1980, when I was 13 years old, my brother Louis was applying to college, and he applied to an urban planning program. And I had never heard of urban planning. And the only people I interacted with that had college degrees were the teachers at school and the doctors at the free clinic. And so what was this thing called urban planning? And so my brother explained to me that cities were planned and that communities were planned. This is the East LA interchange. So in that moment, I really, everyone talks about that sinking feeling, and it's a terrible cliche, but it's actually a sinking feeling. And I still can remember that moment when I was 13 years old, and I realized that whoever had planned East LA didn't care about the people that live there. Because there was no other way of explaining the fact that there was no park, there were no libraries, and that we had not one freeway, not two freeways, not three freeways, not four freeways, but we had 5 freeways going through our neighborhood. And this was back before they built sound walls between communities and freeways. So there were just chain link fences separating our communities from the traffic that was really, basically we paid with our health and the quality of our life for the growth of the region. So that was my sinking feeling about planning and feeling this tall. But I am the daughter of immigrants, and immigrants are like the most optimistic people in the world, and somehow I still managed to have some of that. And so I retained hope for a better day, a better future. And I simultaneously thought, well, if people can plan cities to make me feel like this, maybe we could plan cities to make me feel the opposite and make other people like me feel the opposite. So I actually did end up leaving the neighborhood to pursue opportunity. I went to boarding school. I went to Columbia, and at Columbia, I totally geeked out on planning and developed this interest in housing. But I had a really rough start because I actually picked Columbia because it had no math requirement. And I am really terrible at math. And if you want to develop real estate, there's no way getting around math. And so finally at UCLA, I overcame my fear of math. I took the 2 real estate development classes they offered, and I started my career by building service-enriched housing for people experiencing homelessness that had psychiatric disabilities. And during this time in LA, I kept, going out, and I'd run into just a couple of people that were interested in housing, and we were the only people interested in housing, so we'd end up having these really deep conversations about housing. And we were kind of complaining about the fact that nobody was building affordable housing in East LA, and we were kind of waiting for the adults in the room to do something about it, and suddenly we realized that that wasn't going to happen, that if we were going to do anything, if our neighborhood was going to change, we were going to have to do it ourselves. So I started, as I was working for a community of friends, I worked for them for 6 years and developed all kinds of supportive housing all over the region. I continued to work on my passion project, which was founding East LA Community Corporation. And so we took 2 years going back and forth, and we finally started working on developing what was going to become East LA Community Corporation. And we started with this critique of LA CDCs, especially those that had done some work in the East Side. And we decided that the reason that you couldn't really feel like the neighborhood had changed in any positive way was because they had done nothing to change people's relationship to power. And that what we needed to do to transform our community was to actually build power. And that's why we ended up marrying community organizing and real estate development. So our mission and vision always fused community organizing and development, and really saw development as a tool for community organizing and community building power. And we later added financial literacy and asset building and formed a Department of Community Wealth. Now, many people in the CDC community discouraged us from starting a new organization. They thought there were enough nonprofits. They thought that we were just late to the show, but we ignored them, and we went ahead and incorporated in 1995. And really, for me, it was really rejecting this idea that you needed to leave the East Side for opportunity, that we could build opportunity right there in the neighborhood where we were born and raised. And even though we grew up in the neighborhood, we spent our first year talking and organizing residents. And what we did was the very first projects we took on really addressed the priorities of the community. And what we did was tackle the problem of abandoned properties, vacant properties in our community. And this was during the aftermath of the savings and loan crisis, so there were vacant properties almost on every block. And so we started by little, buying, fixing up, and then if they were for sale, selling them to first-time home buyers, and then holding what was multifamily housing. And again, with priority on taking abandoned properties and bringing them back to be assets in the community. This was my very first project that was financed with the low-income housing tax credit. You saw a picture of the house I grew up in. It's a single-story bungalow. So for me, like the ultimate thing was to build townhouses, right? So these apartments were 2 stories. I grew up in a house where you could never do any homework because it was so loud. So for me, this idea that kids could do their homework upstairs where it was quiet and the family life could be active downstairs, it was just, for me, like, oh, so exciting. And so you could see I really took these townhouse things to heart because I thought, for me, it's like, wow, so luxurious. I'm doing this for this family. So built a lot of stuff, rehabilitated, bought, did single-family homes as well, built housing for veterans. This is for homeless veterans. Actually, one of our residents had been a World War II veteran, so to think of like a homeless World War II veteran, someone that's in their 90s, finally finding, having a permanent home. It's housing for seniors, housing for families with commercial component, working with young people in the neighborhood so that Youth Build came out. Youth Build was a government program. The kids would come out and do certain, some of the building on site. I've cut lots and lots of ribbons along during the course of my career. So so over the years, you know, affordable housing development is very challenging. Any of you who are planning to do that, oh my God, I'm almost out of time. I'm gonna run very quickly. Lots of deaths. If you're gonna do real estate, be prepared for your project to die over and over and over again, and you just resuscitate it. You just keep bringing it back to life. Equally challenging was community organizing, because community residents had been told so many times by government officials that things were going to be different, and government never delivered. And so when you go in, even though you're from the neighborhood, you're up against all of that, all of those assumptions. Community residents coming together, celebrating, planning together, organizing. We started towards the end of my time at ELACC. We were organizing to legalize street vending in the city of Los Angeles, having some significant victories on getting towards decriminalization, working with residents. You know, planning language is so difficult. You know, every time you take a deal to City Hall to get it approved, you always have your land use attorney, your land use consultant. It's probably the most elitist city planning department. So for us, it was really important to not, to basically free the residents from the burden of that elite language and just have them create their own images for what they wanted in their community. And you can see some of the maps they created of the type of land uses they want to see in their community and the types of land uses they wanted us to include in the development that we were pursuing. My most beloved project, you saw the very first project I built, which was a brick building in Boyle Heights. And this is the Boyle Hotel Cummings block, which was built in 1889, the oldest commercial building on the east side of Los Angeles. It was a true labor of love. It died so many times. We kept it alive during the economic downturn, and is now on the National Register of Historic Places, and is, you can't see behind it, but we added on new construction behind it, and is home to 49 families. And these are the ribbon cuttings for the Boyle Hotel, one of the most significant projects of my entire career. I'm an introvert. It's a challenge to have to go out there, but for my community, I had to go out and be visible and be heard. And I guess I ended up being so visible and so loud that I eventually got appointed to the City Planning Commission for the entire city of Los Angeles. And here I am with my crew the day that I signed. In LA, when you become a commissioner, you sign this giant red book. And this is the day I signed the giant red book with my crew. And at the City of LA, one of my fellow commissioners said, "Hey, Maria, you don't want to be thought of as the one-trick pony," because I kept being the person in the City Planning Commission that kept bringing up affordable housing. And I was like, well, how do I get around being the one-trick pony that's always talking about affordable housing? And one was I ended up working with the president of the City Planning Commission, Renee Dake-Wilson, and we created a day-long symposium about how equity equals opportunity and how do we bring equity into the planning process. And after that day, I didn't ever have to bring up affordable housing again because my fellow commissioners did it without my having to prompt it. And it was the first time I think that community residents came out and they weren't protesting something. They were there to have a conversation with the Planning Commission, to have a conversation with each other about the future of the city and how we can make it a more equitable city for everybody. So my life as a city planning commissioner was kind of this fusing of, I don't know, this kind of uber planning geekness and my love of my community. This is the last project I built, completed while at East LA Community Corporation, and it was incredibly special because of my work with community residents, where they actually chose the site for us. They told us they wanted it gone, and here they are. And here it's completed, and obviously we have a problem with overhead electrical wires. I worked in local government, and then I did this crazy thing and I ran for Congress. This is my voice. Okay. I have a voice disability. but it's never stopped me from being a very strong advocate for the community that I represent. My very first purchase after I decided to run was a portable PA system. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing, testing. All right. I named it La Poderosa, which means the powerful one. And it helps me get my message to the people. Having this soft voice, I think, has been actually a source of power for me. It has made me realize how powerful a message can be when it's delivered very deliberately. I've been meeting with residents of the 34th Congressional District, and when I meet with them, I ask them to tell me what they want me to build, what they want me to fight for, and how they want me to lead. What I do is I take this and I put it up on my campaign wall to remind me what matters to people in this district. So I'd invite you to please tell me what you want me to build, what you want me to fight for, what you want me to lead on, so I can take this back to my campaign office and be reminded of it every day that I'm on this campaign trail. So I decided to launch this because I feel that there's no more important fight right now than to go to DC and represent this community and really have a representative who's deeply connected to this community. I thought about my voice, honestly. It's like, are people gonna make an issue about the fact that I have this voice disability? And honestly, at that point, I was like, don't tell me I can't do something, because that just makes me wanna do it all the more. I wanna take this fight all the way to DC, and I'm gonna bring this same passion, commitment, tenacity, and relentlessness to Congress to fight for the 34th Congressional District. I am Maria Cabildo, and I approve this message.
All right, so there you go. Vote for me. So in any event, I'm going to wrap up. So I ended up getting the LA Times endorsement. I had previously been called the patron saint of Boyle Heights. The LA Weekly gave me that moniker. And what I'm thinking about while I'm here as a Loeb Fellow is gentrification, because we were very successful in bringing investment to the east side, and now that investment is not for the people that have been long-term residents. And I'm trying to think of what I missed and then what I can do going forward to make sure that it's a place where long-term, where my story can be repeated, again and again and again is what I really want. And again, thank you so much to the Loeb Fellowship, and thanks to my parents too. All right, thank you.